few more minutes. As you can see, the agenda is on this opening slide. We'll start with roll call of the committee members. There are ways to provide public comment. Phone lines will also be unmuted during the public comment period. We have two presentations today, one from Sewage and Water Board on their Bayou St. John Green Infrastructure Project and one from Sankofa. We do have Aspen Nero from City Planning Commission on the call. In the absence of the Chief Resilience Officer or their designee, City Planning Commission is the vice chair of this committee. Aspen, would you like me to go ahead and take roll call of the committee members that are present?
Yeah, that's fine.
Great. Okay, so for hazard mitigation, we have Austin Feldbaum.
Yeah, hi, Mary. I'm here.
Do we have anyone from the Office of Equity today? For capital projects, we have Erica Barr as the designee.
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Thank you. For Parks and Parkways, we have Danny McElmurray.
I'm here.
For Public Works, we have Megan Williams.
Here.
We have a couple of people from Sewage and Water Board today. So I heard Joe Caruth, we have Grace Vogel, and we also have Stephen Yang.
Hey, Mary.
And for Planning Commission, we have Aspen Nero as stated. We should have Joe Threat joining us as the designee for the Chief Resilience Officer, but we do have quorum for this committee meeting to move forward. This committee reviews projects for consistency with the resilience strategy, and you can see on your screen what those characteristics are. So I'm going to now turn it over to our first presentation, which is Grace Vogel and her team for the Sewage and Water Board. Thank you, Grace.
Thanks, Mary. I'll intro it, but Danielle and Delaney from Dana Brown's Associates will be actually giving the presentation. This is our newest green infrastructure demonstration project funded by the Sewage and Water Board under our consent decree funds. You know what? I'll just let Delaney and Danielle take it away. I saw them on the call. Are you guys able to unmute yourselves? They might be stuck.
Yeah, we can. I think so. This is Jared Zeller. I'm just on the phone.
Oh, okay, good.
Got it?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you now.
Go back to mute. Okay.
Sorry, I was trying to use headphones because I'm at the office today.
That's all right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Delaney from Dana Brown Associates, and I will walk you guys through our design. So what are we flipping? You guys are flipping the pages?
Yes, ma'am. I'm flipping the pages. Just
Can we go to the next page, please?
Of course.
Ready. Thank you. Okay, so here's our site analysis. Basically, we were able to map out the watershed and see where most of the water is going now. And it's flowing across the site from this Orleans and Moss Street corner to this asterisk at the Toulouse end of the site. And there are two existing box culverts that run under the site. There's approximately 4 feet of cover on them. So we don't have a ton of room to do any subsurface stuff, but we have space to work with. And there's some existing catch basins and inlets that we can tie into. There's some surface drains on the site already. And there's a couple of things we need to do to kind of clean it up aesthetically, like the parking bollards and some old vegetation that's dead or not really kind of out of control. But otherwise, we have a pretty blank slate. So if you could flip to the next one, that just leaves us a lot of space to capture water. And we're trying to maximize that space. So our design will capture water at the Orleans Street side, where we will put in a stormwater runnel and funnel that water off of the street and the water that's falling onto the site into a large
speaker. Dr. Nicholas Mason is an assistant.
Where we'll funnel water into a large detention basin and use excavation cut to fill in a berm on the backside of the site, which is significantly lower than the Moss Street curb. And then that will be funneled, if you follow these labeled points, over to point C, where it will go underground into a stormwater, into a drainage pipe that will follow this curved seat wall. And it will be evenly distributed into 4 different types of green infrastructure that are equally sized and kind of can be monitored equally and compared for scientific purposes. And we will have some stormwater monitoring sample catchers out here so that we can do water quality monitoring for a few years to come as part of the project. So if you look at this section, you can see this is the pipe on the left that will funnel the detention basin water into the green infrastructure types, and it will be distributed through the seat wall into the green infrastructure cells. And then there will be an outflow pipe under each type of green infrastructure. And then this little kind of cross perpendicular pipe will allow us to reach in and get a stormwater sample. And then it will flow into an overflow box that will catch any overflow and connect to the subsurface box culverts. The 4 different types of green infrastructure are bioretention cell, trees with tree cells and fiber soils, permeable pavers, and a flexible permeable paver system. So the actual concrete paver blocks, and then the plastic little tray type system that's filled with aggregate. And then the seawall will act as kind of it will help us detain that water and also act as a gathering space for visitors to use this space and learn about the green infrastructure. And there will be some educational signage out here to explain this as well. We can go to the next slide. This is our drainage plan. As you can see, as I already described, water comes in from that Orleans Street side and is captured by the berm, so we can detain a large amount of water as it travels toward that Toulouse Street side and hopefully capture it and distribute it into the green infrastructure types, and then measure the water quality improvement once it's gone through the green infrastructure. Next slide. This is what that water quality equipment looks like. So these are little stormwater sample bottles and holders that are installed into the ground. And you replace these bottles every time you take a sample, and they will go off to a lab for testing with our partner Adaptation Strategies, and they will do water quality monitoring reports. And since we've designed all these green infrastructure types to be exactly the same size, and we are very carefully choosing materials, we can measure the improvement in water quality per storm and over time, because we'll be testing for 3 years after we install these things. And we'll also be conducting pre-construction monitoring. And then this is an example of what the outflow box could look like. It's just kind of a simple concrete box with riprap in the bottom that helps the sediment kind of settle out and allows that overflow to escape from the detention areas. Next slide. These are some details of that overflow box from our engineering partner. Basically, each type of green infrastructure has to have its own outflow pipe so that we can do that stormwater sampling. And then they will all converge in the outflow box, which is connected to the box culvert. Next slide. And then here's some details of the 4 types of green infrastructure. The permeable pavers, the flexible paving system, the trees and fiber soils, and the bioretention cell. And these 4 types will be separated by a concrete band and some geotextile fabric, so that they can really be their own kind of experimental installations. And we've included these stormwater storage calculations on here. So we met all the City of New Orleans requirements and exceeded them too. So we should be able to capture a really significant amount of water here. I think there might be one more slide, but we might, oh, yep, planting plan, of course. We're also adding 50 additional trees to the site, including the 3 that will be in the green infrastructure cell. But we've chosen 3 different tree species for this. They're all native stormwater loving trees. We have some swamp red maples to add some nice color to the site, pond cypress, and white oaks, I believe, is the 3rd tree. And so hopefully the variation in size and color will be really nice out here, in addition to this this design. And we have some of them as street trees along Moss Street, which will also be really nice. Next slide. Our next public workshop is March 10th. It will be in collaboration with the Crescent City Farmers Market. So we'll have a table out there, and we'll be out on the site and really showcasing the design on this workshop and getting a little more public feedback before we finalize the design, and really just continuing to educate about green infrastructure and what we're trying to accomplish here. We have already Andrea Calvin, who I believe is on the call with Adaptation Strategies, has already begun pre-construction stormwater monitoring, and they will continue to do that as well. And hopefully we will begin construction right after Bayou Boogaloo, so that there's no conflict there. I think, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, thanks. This is Jared, and I apologize. I'm on the phone and I'm not in front of the slide, so some of my questions are probably answered by the slide. I'm happy to hear that the trees, that there are more trees. Sorry, I hear somebody.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hey, Jared, we usually do committee discussion and then we'll do public comment at the end.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That's
Sorry.
my fault, sorry.
No worries. And then just as a reminder, you can also type questions in the chat if you'd like, or comments if you'd like them read aloud, or you can email questions or comments to mkincaid@nola.gov. So we'll start with committee discussion and questions. Just to avoid confusion with the phone lines, I'll call on the committee members. Austin, if you'd like to go first.
Thanks, Mary. Delaney, I was having a hard time reading some of the figures on the slides in your presentation, but roughly, what was the calculated potential stormwater storage volume?
Let me look, sorry, off the top of my head. Thank you. We are providing, I think, about 10,000 cubic feet of stormwater storage. That detention area is really helping us out because it gets a lot of that water initially off the street for us, and then we're able to put it into the green infrastructure types afterward. So each of those types has a smaller storage capacity, but the detention basin offers us a lot of storage. I think it's about 8,000 cubic feet on its own.
Gotcha. Did you do any analysis in terms of like what return frequency storm, like, you know, what magnitude of storm the site would be able to accommodate for its watershed?
Yes, I can pull that up and give it to you in the chat.
Cool.
Let me see.
I think those are my only questions, Mary. It's good to see this project moving forward.
Thank you, Austin. Aspen? Any
Yeah, I
questions?
don't have any questions right now or comments. Thank you.
Great. Erica,
No comments. Thank you.
Danny from Parks and Parkways,
What's the timing on this project in terms of getting to construction drawings and then into construction?
We are almost finished with construction drawings. We're in 75% right now, and we hope to begin construction in June of this year. And then I believe we have a 6-month timeline.
And is this being bid through Sewage and Water Board, or how is this being constructed?
Grace?
I can answer that, actually. It's Danielle from Dana Brown and Associates, sorry. As part of our proposal for the project originally, we had a contractor on board. So we're working with RCI Rotolo Consultants. They'll be constructing the project for us as part of our team. So it does not have to be bid.
Okay, thanks.
thank you, Danny. Megan from Public Works.
Just a few minor things. Can you go back to the details of the green infrastructure facilities that are being installed? I think it's the permeable pavement.
This one?
Yeah, that one. Kind of the same as Austin said. It's kind of hard to see what some of the details are. So I don't know that these are real criticisms. Just asking, what is the base course that you're using for the pavers itself?
Number 57, double wash limestone, crushed limestone.
Okay.
I think in the actual concrete pavers, actually in the flexible system are then filled with, or there's another layer of number 8, and then, but it's all crushed limestone.
And the flexible paving, is that the True Grid system?
It is EcoRaster, which is pretty much the same.
Similar
Yes.
to it? Okay, I was
Yes.
just curious.
Mhm.
And then for the bioretention cell, did y'all look at possibly putting some sort of underdrain there? I can't really tell from the drawings.
Yes,
exactly
yes.
how long it is.
Actually, I don't see it in this detail, but the detail on the first page with the cross section of the entire outflow process shows each green infrastructure type has an underdrain.
Okay, what
'Cause that's
size
where
are the
we'll-
underdrains?
They are, I think they're pretty big. They're sized by BKI, our engineering partner. So I think they're 8 inches.
They are 8 inches confirmed.
Yes.
Okay, that clarifies. That was really going to be my only comment, was that you needed the underdrain, but if you've got it on your other drawings, that makes sense. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Reverend Benson. Is the whole Bayou St. John, including the pump that pumped the water in or to the lake?
Oh, Reverend Bell, do you mind if you hold your comment until the public comment period? This is our committee discussion period.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So we have just a few more committee members. Joe, representing Office of Resilience and Sustainability. Do you have any comments or questions?
No, I don't have any comments, Mary. Just waiting to see the project get started. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Sewage and Water Board, Grace, Stephen, or Joe Caruth, do you have any comments or questions?
I certainly don't have any comments.
Thank you,
This is
Grace.
Stephen. I don't have any comments either.
Okay, and our other Joe? Any
No comment.
Okay, so that concludes our committee discussion. We can move on to public comment just on this project only, or we can move on to the second presentation and take all public comment at the end. Joe, would you like me to dispense with the regular agenda and take public comment on this project since there seems to be some interest in it?
Yes, please accept the public comment at this time.
Great. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the first gentleman to ask the question, but Reverend Bell, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question at this time.
Yes, I was wondering, this the whole Bayou St. John, and also what role the pumping station that pumping that water in Bayou St. John, or pumping it out at the end? I'm just concerned with that part.
Grace, can you answer that?
I'm not, so this is just the lot between Toulouse, Moss, and Orleans. It actually sits north of the bayou. So the bayou exists on the south side of that Moss Street. So it won't have any actual overlap with how the bayou functions or water going into the bayou. So we're taking rainwater off the streets into this particular new project. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe we had someone else that wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, this is Jared Zeller with Friends of Bayou St. John. Thanks for hosting today. And I'm just getting in front of the computer so I can see the designs now. And I'm happy to hear about adding, I think 50 trees is what I heard. Is there a planting plan at this point?
There is. If you scroll back to second to last page, I believe.
Okay, you can do that for me? Okay, great.
Yes.
And are they going to be mostly on the perimeter or just spread out? Okay.
So we've got some as street trees and some along the other length of the site.
Mm-hmm.
And we're really trying to keep them out of the detention basin since all of these pieces of green infrastructure are going to be monitored.
Yeah. There's a fire hydrant in the middle there.
Yes.
Are you guys going to deal with that at all, or?
It is it's in use, or it's functioning. So it's going to remain there.
Okay. The last time I used it many years ago, it had a leak. So I don't know if that's ever been dealt with or not.
It doesn't appear to be leaking right now, but we will not be removing it, and it's kind of outside of that berm area, so it won't really affect our design.
Got you. So looking at the Orleans side, I heard you talking about pulling the water from Orleans Avenue.
Yes.
And I think I see in the drawing where it's coming from, more or less. And I don't know the infrastructure you're using for that. Is that just a culvert? Or?
We call it a runnel. It's really just kind of a gap in the curb.
Gotcha.
That will go under the sidewalk, and you might not even notice it. It's very subtle, but it will allow the water to enter the site as if it were entering a catch basin, but hopefully before it enters the catch basin to relieve that drainage pipe.
Got you. Is there any subsurface that's going to take place at that point to get it to the existing culverts, or is it just going to kind of happen naturally?
No, so our goal is to keep this water on site for a little while. So we're going to let this detention basin fill up, let the rest of the water that we're not taking into the site drain as it can, and keep the catch basins around here from being overwhelmed, because we can hold some of this water on the site, and then it will enter as the detention basin fills up. It will enter the 4 different types of green infrastructure in that semicircle that we're looking at, and as it's filled in there, it will as those fill up, it will flow out into under drains, and then it will enter the box culverts.
Okay, and pardon my ignorance on monitoring stormwater. Are we doing this anywhere else in the city at this point? Testing and monitoring stormwater?
We personally are at Dana Brown Associates. I'm sure there are multiple other projects in our partner Andrea from Adaptation Strategies could definitely speak to that. That's what their whole company does. So lots of water quality monitoring opportunities, but we personally at DBA are really trying to get into that more so that we can measure the exact benefits of our projects.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to understand. Sure. I'm trying to understand what exactly is the benefit of monitoring the stormwater.
It would be
and minerals are collecting in the city, or
pollutants, really, heavy metals, any pollutants. So basically, all of this water flowing across the street is picking up pollutants while it's running off.
Right.
and then going straight into the drain, which goes straight into Lake Pontchartrain. So our
Right.
goal would be to send that water into green infrastructure, which filters all of the water before it gets into the drain. So all of the
Good.
soils that we have in the bioretention soils that we kind of design, and the native plants process those pollutants and they filter them out of the water. So then you get cleaner water overall downstream. So that's really
Gotcha.
the goal, one of the main goals of green infrastructure. And that's what we're hoping to see exactly what the level of improvement is with these 4 types. And that's why they're measured and comparable. And we have these stormwater sampling opportunities.
Okay, great. Thank you for explaining that. And is there going to be a walkway? I think at some point I heard there was going to be a walkway from like Orleans to the
So
two.
there was, we wish there was, but our budget is pretty tight and our main focus is that water quality and this green infrastructure.
Sure.
So
Okay.
we've kind of nixed the walkway for now, but we've added, if you see on the Toulouse side, some additional permeable pavers.
Okay.
Where you can gather kind of outside of this circle and then you can sit on that seat wall. So there's some space to hang out here and you'll, as the site is mostly, turf still, you'll be able to traverse it as you do now, and it will be maintained. So, you can still walk across the site, but there's no formal pathway.
Gotcha. And you don't plan on bringing any extra material to the site to raise the elevation, right? I mean,
Oh, no.
maybe.
No.
Okay. Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Okay.
No. So we'll excavate a little bit for this detention basin.
Mhm.
And that we'll use that material to create the berm.
Okay.
Can I ask a real quick question before you move on? Because I'd like to know if the trees that will be planted will all be native
They
trees.
will. They definitely will.
All right. Thank you.
We've chosen
Thanks.
3 native species.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our members of the public, if you can identify yourselves, and then also, Grace, do you have Jared's email address? Because I think you're going to have a public meeting on March 10th, right?
Can you say that again, Mary? I'm sorry.
Oh, you're going to have a public meeting on this on March 10th. Is that right?
Yeah, March 10th from 3 to 5 p.m. at the site is the next public workshop.
Okay. And do you have Jared Zeller's email address already that you can send?
I sure
him
do.
that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So for anyone who has more in-depth questions or would like to talk with the design team, that's another great opportunity to do so. Jared, was that all your questions or did you have more?
Oh, that's it for now. Thanks so much.
Okay. Would any other members of the public like to unmute themselves and ask any questions? I'm not seeing any new questions in the chat. So we'll move on to the next portion of the agenda, which is the Sankofa wetlands presentation. And I believe we have Rashida Ferdinand and her team from Sankofa on the call to make that presentation. If you could unmute yourself and go ahead and get started.
Good afternoon. My name is Rashida Ferdinand. I'm the Executive Director of Sankofa CDC, and this presentation is for our wetland park on Florida Avenue in the Lower Ninth Ward. Also joining me for this presentation will be Tricia LeBlanc, our Wetland Park Director, and Scott Terraby of Duplantis Design. Sankofa CDC was founded in 2008 by Lower Ninth Ward residents and stakeholders who were committed to revitalization of the area. Our organization works directly with residents and community stakeholders to identify locally felt social challenges and address them in thoughtful, cultural, competent ways, and also address those social determinants of health that impact quality of life and health outcomes. The Wetland Park is one of our capital projects that addresses those issues. Our mission is to build healthier communities for generations to come. The Wetland Park is a 40-acre green infrastructure project. It's a linear park. It includes about a 20-block length of space on Florida Avenue. We initially worked on this project in partnership with the Sewage and Water Board to pilot a 2-acre project a part of their consent decree work, and this was in 2017. This community-driven effort was initiated to eliminate blight and address sustainable community development with environmental resiliency. The area where we have been developing the wetland park was covered with blighted invasive trees, trash. It was used as a landfill. And we have really been able to clean up that area in partnership with many community stakeholders and begin to transform it into a very healthy natural habitat for wildlife and also a space for community members to enjoy. We initiated the project in partnership with planning, focus group time with community members and stakeholders and partners who have expert advice and best practices. We worked with the leadership of the National Park Service, Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Program. So in addition to this being a very locally developed project and community-led project, it is also we're working in partnership with state and national partners, including Coastal Protection, Restoration Authority, USDA, NCRS, and RCS, and National Fisheries and Wildlife Federation, Environmental Protection Agency, and once again, National Park Service, Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Program. We also work with a number of academic partners. We work with Dr. John Day, who is Professor Emeritus at LSU School of Coast and Environment, Dr. Craig Hood from Loyola University, Dr. Peter Yackey from Holy Cross College, Dr. Marlon Ford from Southern University Agriculture Center, and Dr. Gary Schaefer from Southeastern University. One of the primary goals of this project is to support and emphasize the importance of stormwater management, being a model project of how stormwater management can be managed in an urban area, but also actively doing this work. The Wetland Park acts as a sponge. It soaks up and cleans the water to support resilience in the Lower Ninth Ward area. We're currently storing about 800,000 gallons of water in this area, but the intention is to expand that to 8 million gallons of water and reduce flooding. The wetlands, as all wetlands do, this project will also help to remove pollutants from stormwater runoff because the plants around these wetlands will filter out toxins and chemicals in the water. We all understand the importance of this type of restoration. It provides an effective approach to flood protection, fresh waters and wetlands, like what the Sankofa Wetland Park is doing. We are addressing that salt water that has impacted wetlands, and we're providing a buffer zone against stormwater surges. We're really trying to protect our neighborhoods against hurricane. The impact of hurricane, we all know what's happened over the past 15 years, from 2005 Hurricane Katrina to other hurricanes that's affected New Orleans and other parts of Louisiana. And so we planted hundreds of cypress trees, which will grow as this project grows to more cypress trees that support floodwater mitigation in the Lower Ninth Ward area. Overall, we're intending for this project to support a reduction in property damage, to also reduce temporary road closures due to rain events, and support a feeling of safety for residents, for themselves personally and their property, and also have a carryover into a reduction of flood insurance premiums and increase the property values. So support quality of life and wealth building in the neighborhood for residents. I'm going to hand this over to my colleague, Tricia LeBlanc. She's our Wetland Park Director, and she's going to speak about the wetland ecologies, the ecosystems, the importance of the trees and their impact on health and wellness in the neighborhood, and the wetland habitats, the animal habitats and plant life that's being developed in the park.
Thanks, Rashida. So the wetland ecology of these kinds of habitats, they are, some of the most productive in the world, right up there with rainforests and other really productive habitats. So, in creating this space, we're creating a very productive habitat for wildlife, in addition to the stormwater benefits that Rashida mentioned. So It's going to, be a shelter for all sorts of animals as well as the native plants that exist there now, in addition to the native plants that would be installed in this space. And then you have the addition of the retention ponds that would increase habitat for aquatic and semi-aquatic species as well. And then, you have the plants and the soils that as that water comes in from that stormwater runoff, it's going to have the added benefit of sort of recharging that groundwater and not only collecting floodwater, but then also helping with that issue of subsidence as it recharges that groundwater. Next slide. So we've as Rashida mentioned, we've been working with some folks in academia, and one of the things that they have assisted us with is doing some calculations about rain events and the impact that this project would have on rain events. And so here's some of the calculations that we wanted to share with you. So, with this project, we're looking at taking a 5.3 inch rain event and over 2 years, it would turn into a 1.58 inch rain event. So over the 2 years of the construction, we have, we could remove or we're looking at, as Rashida said, we've got tallow back up in there that we have been removing and will continue to remove and get those invasive plants out of that area, which, as we know, tallow is a very invasive plant that is detrimental to other native plants and causes damage to other native plants that are trying to, establish themselves in areas. And then, we want to plant out 40 acres. As I said, once we remove the invasives, we want to plant out native vegetation, conserve the native plants and trees that are existing in that space, and then add to them with other natives, bald cypress, water tupelo, things that would restore that wetland habitat. Next slide. So some conservation outcomes that we're looking at for the park, as in the short term, as we restore this acreage, we're looking at increasing the bird and the fish and some of the other wildlife species. Within 4 years, we're looking at a 25% increase. We're already seeing that increase with the space that has already been developed in that area. And we have, eBird, and we have birders that go out there and track that. We have a bat monitoring station with Dr. Craig Hood from Loyola University, who is tracking bat species out there. So, we're already tracking some data that's showing that the species is already increasing with the area that's already been developed. And then long term, we expect as the space increases and the bioretention ponds and the native plants, and we continue to create this habitat, that would only increase to about 85%, which, it would be a great place for birds. It would be a great place for fish, for all kinds of animals to really have a place to rest, find habitat, raise their young, and for people to come out and enjoy observing that wildlife. It's also, as we are interested in healthy spaces for wildlife, we're also interested in healthy spaces for the community. So having this green space provides a lot of mental and physical health benefits to the community that would benefit from it. So, you've got an increase in physical activity, which provides health benefits. You can reduce a lot of chronic disease risks, heart disease, diabetes, things like that. You can also increase bone density because your exposure to vitamin D, being out in the sun. So you're increasing your bone health. You're getting out there, being physical, getting outside actually improves your ability to get a better night's sleep. And then just the stress relief of being outside, being physically active, being with the community members, being with friends and family members outside and getting some sunlight and some fresh air does a lot to reduce stress and just create that social cohesion within the community. And this is just a slide just about the benefits of trees and the effects they can have on the community. So, they can go a long way to reducing heat effects that we find in some urban areas where trees are not necessarily prevalent, where, hard surfaces like concrete are more commonly found. And so planting trees can actually have the effect of reducing that heat effect by, around 9 degrees or so. Trees also can pull particulates out of the air and improve air quality, and also they're trapping that CO2 and helping with climate resiliency as they're helping with the global warming and greenhouse effect that where everybody hears about in the news nowadays. So they can also add to the stormwater storage effect. So we have the bioretention pond that's going to collect water, but then the addition of these native trees will also absorb water in addition to the pond. So, a large tree can absorb roughly about 2,000 gallons of water per year annually. So that will just add to the space's ability to take on stormwater and rainwater during the year in those rain events. And just, we talked about the land and we talked about the water and a little bit about the species, and just to share with you, the kind of food web and kind of habitat that we're creating that's drawing these animals. We've got right now on eBird about 166 bird species that have been cataloged, and you can see the diversity of them, including 15 species of concern. These are bird species that have been identified by the Audubon Society as being birds of concern based on the fact that their habitats, their wetland habitats, are being lost in other areas, and so being able to provide this habitat would offset some of the other habitat that they're losing and give them a space here where they can nest and forage and find food and shelter. We've also got seed dispersers and pollinators, so it's just helping to continue to develop that wetland habitat by helping those plants to be able to disperse themselves. And then we've got migratory bird species that can find shelter as they're traveling their long distance across the Gulf of Mexico to and from wherever they're headed. And, we're a nice stopover for them when they're coming off of that long voyage across that Gulf, and they can stop and take a break and rest and before they move on to their next location. We do actually have fish species in the ponds that we currently have, including the gambusia, the mosquito fish. So we're able to deal with the mosquito larvae that are developing in those ponds. In addition to that, you can see some of our macroinvertebrates like dragonfly nymph and damselfly nymph, also voracious little predators that like to eat mosquito larvae. So that's helping us to maintain that issue of keeping those mosquito larvae down and making sure we're not creating an issue for the community rather than solving one. And then we also have the largemouth bass and the bluegill and some crawfish as well. Next slide. So again, just the benefits of native plant, if you've got native plants, you're providing food and shelter for wildlife. And then they can, plants can help with the reduction of air pollution. They don't require watering as much as, other types of ornamentals that may not be natives. They're pretty hardy. So, and they really promote biodiversity. And the trees, again, will protect us from the hurricanes and heavy rain events as they are able to, hold the soils together and provide that wetland habitat. And the bioretention ponds are able to collect the water from those rain events as well. And then I'll pull this from our landscape architect plan. So this is just our planting schedule from the plans. So you can see the different categories of plants that are in the plan. So we've got our shade trees, which are listed here. All, again, native trees, you know, bald cypress, laurel oak, water tupelo, river birch, things like that. You can move to the next slide, please. We've got some other things like seed mixes and turf and some other things that we want to mix in there as well. So you can see the schedule for that. Next slide. And then some shrubs like Turk's cap. And then we've also got some perennials and ground cover grasses like pink muhly grass, starrush whitetop. Yeah, you can move to the perennials and ground cover. You know, and then just, again, some native flowers, blanket flower, Stokes aster, blazing star, some rose, some mallow, you know, things like that. We do have some irises as well. And then we've got some ferns. And then you can, yeah. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Scott Barbary, and he's going to talk us through the engineering components of the project.
Thank you, Tricia. As Tricia said, my name is Scott Barbary. I'm with the Planets Design Group. We kind of handled the site design and stormwater management portion of this project for Sankofa. So the location of the project is at the downstream end of the overall drainage basin within the lower 9th Ward, and the Holy Cross area actually drains to pump station number 5, I believe it is, which is discharged into Bayou Avenue. So what we looked at on the overall design here is how much water, you know, ultimately gets downstream to the site. Underneath our project site, I think there is a 16 by 16 box culvert, which conveys water from basically from the river, from all the subsurface drainage which spans from the river to our site and over to the pump station. So what we focused on in the design a bit is, as well as the green infrastructure, is the retention portion of it, providing enough detention not only to detain our site, meet the green infrastructure standards set forth from the city, but also to provide some additional storage, which you'll see as we go through the slides here. We're providing much more storage than we need to meet the city codes in order to, when those box culverts back up and we get heavy rain events, water can store in our ponds versus necessarily storing in the streets as early on in a storm event. Next slide. So here's a quick calculation we put together just to show the pre versus post development peak runoff flow rates from our project. As you can see, based on New Orleans Green Infrastructure Calculator, we're showing a significant reduction in post-development runoff from our project than what's currently there. And even we put it into another program just to run some different storm events to see the effects there, and we see similar reductions, greatly increasing the storage capacity of what's currently there on our site. This is the pollutant load reductions that we're seeing. And this was taken from the Green Infrastructure Calculator from the city of New Orleans. The way we modeled this, and this is just something to keep in mind, so I think in reality, we'll probably see greater reductions in all of these average annual loadings. The pond in the green infrastructure was designed as just a wet pond, but as Tricia and Rashida have stated before, this is really going to be a wetland ecosystem. It'll be planted as such, so I think we'll see even more filtration than what's showing up in the calculations here. Next slide. So as I stated before, the water quality component that we needed in order to satisfy the city's requirement was about 164,000 cubic feet of storage. The storage that's being provided just within the wetland retention pond is just over 1 million cubic feet. And on top of that, there will be filtration and other ways to help treat water through the site. The entire site's going to be green. It's going to be planted with the species of plants that Tricia had mentioned earlier on in the presentation. So again, I think this is just kind of hitting to the fact that from a water quality standpoint, there's a significant increase in water quality volume being provided with this project. Another thing we looked at to make sure we weren't going to cause a negative impact here is a good portion of this site is within the FEMA floodplain, and the BFE currently is -3. And the ponds right now are being controlled by kind of like the land weir at the southeast corner that keeps the water elevation generally controlled between -7 and elevation -7.5. So knowing that we are trying to balance the site and reduce the amount of haul off here, at the end of the day, we're coming up with a net increase in floodplain storage on site. Another thing I want to mention as well is we have been in contact with the Army Corps of Engineers. They are working on a project that they'll be looking to tie some of the city streets in potentially directly into the wetlands pond to help reduce flooding within the streets through the neighborhoods as a part of working with us in this project. Next. This map's hard to see. This is what I was speaking of before, just showing the sections of our site, and this really shows a large section of the 9th ward adjacent to our project, which sits within the floodplain of AE -3. That's it. Tricia or Rashida, y'all have anything else to say?
No, thank you. Thank you, everyone on the committee, for your time to review, and we welcome your comments and feedback.
And Rashida, can you let the committee know, so you were asked to present to the RDRC as part of your permit process and your submittal to the Design Advisory Committee for city planning. Am I stating that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we'll move to committee. Give me a second here. We'll move to committee comments and discussions. I'm going to ask same thing that I did before. Austin Feldbaum from Hazard Mitigation. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I think Scott, you mentioned at the end of your presentation there that somebody was working on tying in the surface drainage off of the streets to the wetland park. Can you?
So I believe the Corps, I believe the Corps is working on a project right now that's looking at utilizing our project as a way to improve the drainage system throughout the overall development. I think Rashida may be able to speak a little bit more about the Silver Jackets project, is what they're calling it.
It's with the Silver Jackets, yes.
So Austin, I don't have much information on what they're doing and how they're doing it. I've been contacted by their engineer. I forget the name of the group that is doing it, but they have asked us to share our models with them so that they could look at the area, make sure that what they're providing in there is fitting into the swim model correctly for what we're designing.
Correct. They're exploring right now. They're engineers with the Silver Jackets group, part of the Army Corps of Engineers. Some engineers that work with the Army Corps of Engineers are exploring how this project could improve drainage as well in the area. And we were awarded this technical assistance support through an Army Corps of Engineers proposal that we submitted. And so because we were awarded this, the resources are going directly to the engineers to explore how this may work. So they've communicated with the Sewage and Water Board as well as Scott on how they can start to develop this assessment.
Gotcha. So I was trying to track during the presentation. I think I heard a figure of 8 million gallons as sort of of storage as sort of the goal for the project, but it sounded like, if I'm following right, it sounded like the current storage capacity is closer to 1 million. Is that accurate? And I guess so, or while clarifying, how how are you planning to pull that additional 7 million gallons?
So, Austin, I think you, just to clarify there, the number, the 8 million gallon number, and then you're probably hearing we're at just over 1 million cubic feet of storage. So, yeah, I think that's where the number's off. So we're just in, and I'll just elaborate on it a little bit more there as well. Just within the detention pond or the retention areas, we're getting over 1 million cubic feet of storage. And across the rest of the site, there'll still be portions of the site that's low enough. I'll call it on the street side of the pond along Florida Avenue that will be able to provide some retention and filtration outside of our detention pond area.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the reason I'm asking is because obviously, this site is downslope from the rest of the boulder, right? So, and it's in the downstream flood zone. But a lot of the water that's moving through that site is moving through subsurface systems, right? So, I think in the past, Mary and Rashida and I had talked about potential modifications to the drainage system to create more of a dynamic connection where water will flow, from the drainage system into the site. All right. Yeah, I'd love to learn more about that contracted stuff and how you guys. I guess I have just a couple, maybe one or two more comments. I think going back to slide 13 in the presentation, obviously, there's a lot of benefit to increasing urban tree cover, including its use as habitat, and the stormwater benefits. I think that we need to be careful about trying to translate directly sort of the conventional wisdom of urban forestry and how it specifically as regards to heat islands. There's research that kind of points that in a subtropical humid climate like ours, the sort of statistics and values that you hear quoted from like the Southwest really don't apply here, or they're not going to be. It's not going to be a wonder, right? So I would just a word of caution about kind of pulling that in full as is. And then I guess with in terms of the habitat functions of the site, I guess, well, no, I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Austin.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Great project.
Aspen from City Planning, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I just have a comment. This came before our DAC committee, and then since then we have gotten a comment, so we just want to get it on the record. I know this is a little bit out of today's scope because City Planning will be approving DAC plans for this. There was just a comment from Jennifer Kretschmann in Real Estate and Records about the cooperative endeavor agreement. So the signage is showing that this is a park and it has park listed in there, and that is a conflict with the CEA. So there's just been a comment that before City Planning signs off on plans, any park signage would need to be removed from the proposal, but we can work that out on the DAC end. We just wanted to get it on the record.
Thank you, Aspen. And for the members of the public that joined this call, the signage that Aspen's referring to, those were in some design plans that were provided for committee review. So that's why you didn't see that in the slides today. Any other comments or questions, Aspen?
That's it.
Great, thank you. For capital projects, Erica, any comments or questions?
Yes, Mary, I wanted to ask, what's the current status of this project? Is it in design or going into construction? What's the status of it?
So Rashida, if you don't mind, so this is a phased project. There was already a project that was funded under Sewage and Water Board, Green Infrastructure Consent Decree money. So some of it's already built. Rashida, what's the status the status for this portion that you're presenting today is that you're seeking a permit to construct your next phase. Would that be correct?
Correct. We are seeking a permit to move forward and complete the construction of the entire 40 acres. We have commitments of funding from Coastal Protection Restoration Authority, as well as National Fisheries and Wildlife Foundation. And so the status is to complete the remaining 40 acres of the project, and also work in partnership with the funders, state and national level, who have also committed to seeing this work out.
Okay, great. So that's where you have the current, because I was looking in the map and there's already a Sankofa park. And that's where you're saying that currently you have the almost 1 million gallon of storage.
That is correct.
Okay. And do you have a timeline for this project, for the second phase or the next phase of this project?
As soon as this project is approved, we will be finished within 12 months.
Okay. Thank you for that. And regarding location, I know Scott was saying it was all along Florida Avenue. Is that the last portion on the ninth ward? You said it was from which to which street?
Yes, it's the entire Florida Avenue portion. It's the street of Florida Avenue. So it's that's the last street north of the Lower Ninth Ward.
Okay. And this water that you are, the goal of your 8 million, is that water that it's being absorbed or attracted to this park from removing the water from the houses? So it's alleviating flooding on the houses that are in that area?
Overall in the neighborhood itself. So the houses, there are houses in this area, there are places where people live, so it would alleviate flooding that impacts people's homes.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. So Danny McElmurray with Parks and Parkways.
I was able to look at the drawings. You know, we had the DAC in terms of planting. I don't have any issues. I know y'all been working on removing the invasives, which I think is, you know, crucial to the success of other planting, and you are retaining quite a few trees. Have y'all worked with, is there a railroad right of way along there, or some other kind of right of way along the edge, is a levee or something like that? Can't remember. And there's a levee along the
Danny, yes, there's a levee. We're constructing outside of there right away. We've actually we are seeking a levee permit right now from Southeast Flood Protection Authority East.
Okay, that's what I was kind of getting at.
Okay.
And then there's also the are y'all outside of the railroad right of way as well?
I believe we are outside of the railroad right away. I don't want to speak for Rashida or Tricia.
Yes,
But
yes.
they have.
Yeah, we are. We have met with Norfolk Southern along with city representatives and discussed all this, and they have reviewed our plans, and they are satisfied with the location of what we're planning, that we are well outside of their right of way.
And what about the connection, whether it's supposed to be there or not, to the Bayou Bienvenue wetland platform? What's going to happen with that? Are y'all just going to continue to have that there?
We didn't construct it, so we don't have any plans to do anything with it. What's going to happen is we will be constructing a bioretention pond that will obstruct people's ability to access it at that point, and we'll have plantings and trees and things just like is there right now along the back of that area, which will create another buffer. We discussed all that as well with Norfolk Southern, and they were happy that we had sufficiently created a buffer between the water and the vegetation that would be along that back area to prevent pedestrian access to their track.
Have y'all been discussing that in public meetings when y'all have community presentations?
Discussing which part of that?
Yes, we've been
Yes.
discussing
Yes.
all of this we've had multiple meetings, community meetings and presentations. We've discussed
Just
this.
making sure it's getting presented. We just want to make sure that, people know that it's going to be cut off. I think I'm good. The other issue was about the signage, but that's something that y'all and Jennifer need to work out with in terms of real estate and property management with the CEA. So I'm good.
Thank you, Danny. Megan from Megan from DPW, Public Works, sorry.
The only real question that I have is similar to what Austin said, is just how you guys actually came to the 8 million gallons of storage. I would like to see the numbers side by side of the interventions that are attributing to that storage, because it's quite a jump from I think it was 800,000 gallons to 8 million. That is really my only comment. I would just like to see how those numbers do actually add up in the interventions that are holding that significant amount of water. Other than that, I really don't have anything.
If I could just make a clarification there too, the 800,000 gallons of water is currently the flow of water into the wetland area. And the 8 million gallons is what I guess our target for creating storage in there.
Okay.
Scott, would those numbers or those calculations be reflected in the plans that were provided to the committee members for today, or is that some supplemental material that you'll need to share with Megan after this meeting?
It'd probably be a bit of a bear to pull it from the plan, so I'd provide it to her after this meeting to make her life easier.
Great. Okay, so if you wouldn't mind taking that as an action item. Anything else, Megan?
No, that's it. Thank you so much.
Okay. And then Sewage and Water Board, any comments from Grace?
No real comments. I actually went out yesterday to wander around, and it was looking really nice. I do want to mention that Bryant is no longer with Sewage and Water Board. So Rashida, I just want to make sure that I'm your point person going forward, especially in keeping us in the loop with anything that comes up with the Silver Jackets and anything else that the Army Corps of Engineers need from us and vice versa, making sure that we're all in the know as far as each step of the way goes. Thanks.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Stephen from Sewage and Water Board?
Yeah, I just want to second what Grace said. Just keep her in the loop, and she'll in turn, keep me in the conversation as well. I do want to let you all know that in that area there are, because it's next to the wastewater treatment plant, there are large sewer force mains going in that area. So we want to be very diligent in making sure that we build around that and not on top of it or damage anything during construction. So we want to be definitely kept in a loop while these plans are developed to make sure we keep track of that.
Great. And we had one other person for Sewage and Water Board, Joe Caruth. Any comments from you?
No comments at this moment in time. And thank you
Okay.
all so much.
Last but not least, on the committee members, Joe Threat for Resilience. Any comments or questions?
No comments from me, Mary. It's good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to also recognize those city departments on the call that are not committee members? I know we have Jen Bro from Mosquito Termite Control. Any comments or questions?
No, I don't have any. Thank you.
Great. And I think we might still have Laura Bryan from Office of Transportation. Laura, any comments you'd like to make? Oh, she might have dropped off after our last presentation. Okay, so we'll move on to public comment portion for this project. Let me check the chat, see if anything came in on the chat. No, nothing came in from the chat. So I invite members of the public who'd like to comment to unmute themselves. Please introduce yourself, and if you're with an organization, let us know, or let us know which part of town you reside in.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Craig Hood. I'm, I live in Uptown, but I'm professor at Loyola University. My name was mentioned a few times about being a bad ecologist, and so my comments really are, sort of the ecosystem services and the overall values of what already has been developed, the bottom end, as well as the plans for the rest of the way. So 3 years ago, I set up a bat monitoring station there, and that was at a time when they had just kind of gotten the lagoons on the very bottom end as a demonstration project going, and they had planted all these 3-4 foot tall cypress trees, and those trees 3 years later are 25 to 30 feet tall. So there's the nature engagement element, which is definitely important both for especially birds and bats as well, and other organisms, but also the public engagement. And being in the lower Ninth Ward, I think that is an incredible important element of this. And by the way, I've been taking college students for almost 30 years to the wastewater treatment plant for field trips, as have many other K through 12 and colleges here in the greater New Orleans area. But that's the other piece. This is a green infrastructure engagement opportunity, and it's in the lower Ninth Ward. It's not a field trip to Gentilly for folks in the lower Ninth Ward, and even all the way down in St. Bernard Parish. It's just right there. And I met with Michael Regan, the director of EPA, when he came in November, and told him about the bats for 2 minutes, but also said, well, and I'm sure he was told, and he probably knows, that like 100 yards over here is the wastewater treatment plant for all of Orleans Parish, or at least the East Bank side. And so it has all of those values as well. And the fact that, I'm just speaking anecdotally here, but Peter Yockey for birds, myself for bats, and other people, we've already seen the incredible value of what was developed already. And if that continues along the whole rest of the way, for those 40 acres, then there's really going to be something that's unique for our entire region. This is a special element that is different than Katuri Forest and City Park. And also, it's for the people of the lower Ninth Ward. Thanks.
Thank you. Rashida, would you like to comment on any of your future outreach activities you have planned? I think you were maybe working with North Sea on bringing some people out or incorporating this into their offered activities. Is that right?
Correct. This project offers a very, very significant opportunity for consistent education and community engagement that connects this area in Lower Ninth Ward to other initiatives throughout the city. And so we're not working in a silo in one area. We are highlighting what is significant, unique, and beautiful about this space. And as Dr. Hood said, being a place that welcomes people and draws people to the neighborhood, which is so important as we work to support development and revitalization of the area. So it touches on so many different important touch points for growth, revitalization, restoration of this neighborhood. We are working in partnership with the New Orleans Recreation Department, and so this outdoor recreation space is in alignment with the work that NORD is doing in New Orleans East and other parts of the city. And it was just such an easy fit and so mission aligned with all of the work that our academic partners and our park and recreation partners, education, K through 12 education partners are doing. So we're really honored to be able to do this work in the community.
Can I add to Rashida's comment, if I may?
Yes, can you identify yourself?
Okay. Yes, my name is Wendy Reiner, and I am on both the Orleans Audubon Society Board and the Native Plant Initiative of Greater New Orleans. And I just want to add to what Rashida was saying in that NPI, the Native Plant Initiative, has already hosted a very successful plant giveaway down at Sankofa in the midst of COVID, and it was wildly successful. People came down, were amazed. They did not know that Sankofa was there, and we got, just inundated. It's probably not a good choice of words, but we got inundated with positive feedback that they want another plant giveaway down there. We have also helped donate native plants, irises and things like that. And I can also say in seconding Dr. Hood's comments, as a birder myself, I have seen the bird population increase because of the native plantings. But more so than that, I also want you to say Sankofa is needed because, let's face it, everyone should know if they don't know, there is a calming mental health effect on green spaces and young people. And there is so much research on there. Richard Louv, we can look up Richard Louv on how it helps young people focus. They find calmness there. They find reprieve from the stresses of life. And I cannot overemphasize how important Sankofa is for that. And that's all I'll say.
Thank you, Ms. Reiner. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to unmute themselves and provide comment or ask a question? Can I give a few more people?
Hi, this is Jen Kretschmann.
Yes, go ahead, Jen.
Just not familiar with the committee. Is there some sort of document that comes from the committee after this meeting? Is there a vote or further review? What is the next stage from here?
Yeah, great question. So by policy, the city reviews city resilience projects. Since these are external projects, they've been presented for information only. As far as documentation, we'll have two forms of documentation. We'll post the slides and the recording of today's meeting to the website. We'll also do meeting minutes that get posted to the Resilience Design Review Committee page that'll document some of the things that were asked and requests for additional information, like DPW's request or Sewage and Water Board's comment, that they would like to be consulted, Ray, any work on any sewer force main. So that document will kind of be their record. Because this was requested by the DAC, we'll also provide those meeting minutes to City Planning Commission to show that this requirement has been met. Does that answer the question?
Yes, but in a somewhat surprising way, since this is on city property, I thought that I didn't realize it was for information only at the request of DAC, because it was actually a requirement of the CEA.
A requirement of the CEA that it be presented to the RDRC?
That it be approved by the RDRC.
Okay. Well, so after we do committee comment and then we do public comment, we usually ask for a motion. So we can ask for a motion of the committee to, once we finish public comment, we'll all ask for that motion to approve. So let's finish up public comment and then we'll do that. Are there any other questions that you have?
Not at this time.
Okay. Any other members from the public that would like to provide comment? I'm not seeing anything additional in the chat, but I just did receive one comment via email that I'll read into the record. This is from Heather Zappery of the organization TREE. TREE has had the pleasure of hosting a few activities there, and over the years watched acres go from what seemed like a wasteland to a beautiful wetland, world of plants and animals for all to enjoy. The amount of birds soaring by is breathtaking. TREE supports efforts to continue this trend with the connected stretches of land in order to create more accessible natural spaces for New Orleans citizens and visitors to experience. And you get so much more in return beyond a place for people to go, but also a place for water to be absorbed and air to be filtered. This is a project to support, maintain, and sustain for many future generations to come. I'm just going to check my email real quick to see if anything else came in. Just making sure. And again, I invite any members of the public to unmute themselves and ask their question or make comments.
I just have one more if I can. I forgot to add that Peter Yockey, who has been mentioned several times, he is on the Orleans Audubon board with me. He will be leading, and correct me if I've got this date wrong, Tricia, he will be leading a bird walk on April 2nd at Sankofa, and it's open, you know, for people to go to. So if you are interested in birds, if you're interested in seeing the migrants, it'll be really at the beginning of a great spring migration, we hope. I would go there on April 2nd.
Great, thank you very much. Hearing no further comment from the public, I will ask the committee members for motion to approve the Sankofa Wetlands Park for a permit.
Yeah. Mr. Errol has a comment.
Oh, great, thank you.
Yes, I'm a lifelong resident of Lower 9, and Slaughter Avenue has never had any activity except for blight. For this park to come along, it's a place for a lot of these kids to go to not get in trouble. That's a sanction where when I was a kid, when I seen my friends wanting to go to the left, I went fishing, and I learned a lot from the older people who were out there, and till death, those people became my friends. They taught me a lot about life. And I've gone to the park in many occasions to just get fresh air, to just see the progress. There's so much progress that has been done there in the last year or so since I've been knowing about it. I don't see why we could go against this at all. This would be a great asset to our community and people from all over. That's pretty much me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Earl. We appreciate that. One more opportunity for, I know we have several members of the public today on the call. One more opportunity for anyone to provide any comment or ask any questions. And sorry, go ahead.
Yes, this is Dominique Lang. I am the Legislative Director in Councilmember Thomas's office. We don't have any questions. We've actually followed this project.
I'm sorry, Dominique, you're cutting out a little bit. Would you mind repeating yourself? I heard you say we don't have any questions and then you cut out.
Is this better? We're just very excited about this project. Ward 9 is the district that Councilmember Thomas represents, and we just want to share with the committee our excitement about the project, what it's going to bring to Florida Avenue.
Thank you, Ms. Lang. We appreciate that. So I'll now ask for a motion from the committee to approve this project for construction, for permitting and construction. Can I get a motion?
This is Aspen. Can we make a motion with further like comments to be worked out? Like I know the signage comment, can that be worked out with edits before we like approval subject to those edits, and then also the calculations being checked?
Yes, that's a great point. So we have done that before. We made a motion that this project is approved to move to the next phase, assuming that those comments that were made today are met. Those comments, being the signage, the coordination with Sewage and Water Board, and the Department of Public Works request for the calculations. So those 3 action items. So assuming those action items are met, can I get a motion from the committee that this project will be approved for the next level?
Yes.
Motion for that. Yeah, or I'll second the motion for that under those requirements. Yes.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Aspen. So I'll take a voice. I never can do that part. Any opposed? In favor?
Aye.
Yay.
Motion passes. Can I get a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
Excuse me, Mary, before we adjourn, I just have a question for clarity. Who is the point of contact to complete these this information? Scott's gonna share the information on the calculations. What's the net? How do we move forward with getting this complete? Who do we talk to? Who confirms it? Who's the POC? And how do we move forward so the motion is accepted?
Sure. So when I provide you the meeting minutes, I'll have the contact info for the committee members that made those requests today. You can also email me and ask me for contact info for Grace and Megan. They're also on your email. So, sorry, on the invitation for this meeting today. So if you want to go ahead and get started without waiting for the meeting minutes, you can go ahead and send those calculations to Megan and DPW, and you can send, well, really your plans were already attached to this invitation. So that's just a matter of following up with Grace and Stephen, Ray, those comments on Sewage and Water Board, because they have the plans that were attached to this invite.
Mary, this is Danny from Parkways. Parkways also has to stamp and sign these.
Right. So right. So what Jennifer sent to me while we're on this call is that as part of the CEA, Sankofa had to request the committee's feedback and ensure RDRC approval. That's completely separate from your signing the plans. So we're just talking about comments that were made today by the committee.
Right. I'm just responding to Rashida too, also. As you move through the process, once you get your plans in final format, they need to be sent to Parkways for final approval before you go to permitting.
I'm just trying to confirm where the plans are. If the plans just need to have, if Aspen or someone from city planning is going to follow up with us about the signage clarification so we can address that and then move it forward, like what does that process look like? But I'll wait to get that information from you, Mary. So,
Actually, Aspen, that comment about the signage that was brought up, and you said it wasn't addressed by the DAC at the time, but it sounded like y'all were going to follow up on that separately. Would that be correct?
Yeah, we can. We'll make sure that because we have to approve the plans as well. In addition to Danny, which is part of that DAC plan, we won't sign off any plans until that signage issue is resolved. So we have to actually sign off the plans, which I think is separate from this.
Great. Okay, and so so Aspen, would you be the point of contact for Rashida for anything else that is needed by the DAC?
Yeah, you can send the plans. I can see. You can just send them to me. I'll see who else is involved. I know someone might be already assigned to this, but you can send them to me.
you need us to send you you don't have the plans, Aspen. You need us to send you the plans.
Well, so they'll need to be updated to have the park, the signage will need to be updated so that it doesn't show park on there.
All right, I'm asking so that we know what we're referring to, if it's one sign or multiple areas, exactly what we're referring to so that we can contact our landscape architect and there can be some clarity around it. Can you send me something in writing that
Yeah,
states what
I
you want
can.
us
Yeah,
to
we'll
do?
send you. I'll follow up with Jennifer and then also with DAC to make sure that we get those in writing to you.
Okay, great. Good clarification. Any further questions or comments before we adjourn? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion for that.
I second Mary, Erica.
Thank you. Any opposed? In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I release you to a beautiful Louisiana afternoon. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Thank
Mary.
you for your time.